Mr. Jones. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. Just came to see how my son James is doing.
Great. Well, thank you for giving me your time today. As you remember, we sent home a note a couple of months ago about how we needed your child to have a good night's rest and a good breakfast because we would be testing the next day.
Yes, definitely.
Well, on October 2nd, your son James took the Iowa Test of Basic Skills over the course of 3 days. This test is an achievement test, which is based on what students should be learning for each year. We'll go over the results in a minute, but I just wanted to remind you that this test does not show the total picture of how James is doing. This test is merely a snapshot for us to evaluate. I actually have a portfolio with me of James's work that will show us much more about how he's doing in the 4th grade. Do you have any questions so far?
Awesome. No, not right now, but I'm just anxious to see how he's doing.
Great. Okay, first let me explain the top and the bottom portion of the test. The top portion is called the norm reference. Before this test was distributed, it was first given to a sample group of 1,000 students all over the U.S. consisting of different learning abilities, social economic statuses, race, and gender. The bottom portion shows a breakdown of how James scored in each category compared to the national averages. Up here, the basic skills that were tested are listed above where it says the core total. These subjects include reading, language arts, and math. And then the composite scores are a combination of these basic subjects tested plus social studies, science, maps and diagrams, and using reference materials.
Okay.
And then if we look here at the national percentile ranks, it shows us how James scored compared to the national averages. On this bell curve, you can see that 50 is the middle or the average score. So looking back at James's score, you can see he's above 50 in many of the areas. Take for instance, in vocabulary, he scored 75, which when we look back at the bell curve, we can see that is above average. And then in spelling, James scored a 46, which may be a little below average, but that's not too far off. I have some ideas of how we can work on getting that average up. These percentile bands kind of give us a visual to see where the average scores are and how James actually scored.
So, what are some ideas you have to work on James's spelling? Because I see he made a 46 percentile.
Yeah. Well, a good thing to do at home is maybe you can make a game out of spelling items you see around the house, or you can spell while driving in the car. Just make sure you practice those new spelling words each night, and just make sure he's reading his 20 minutes a day.
That sounds great. I'll try that.
Great. Okay, now let's look at where it says SS at the top portion of the test. It stands for the standard score. The standard score shows how the student is doing in the 4th grade, and the average score is 200. So if we look at James' score, we can see he is right around average in all of the areas, which is great. Did you have any questions about any of these scores?
No, looks like he's doing pretty well to me.
Okay. If you look over to the next one that says GE, the GE stands for grade equivalent. This just shows how James did by grade level in month. For example, if you look over here, the score was 5.2. That means that James' score was equivalent to the grade level 5 in 2 months. Then if you look at the category of usage and expression, his score is 7.5, which is the grade equivalent of 7th grade in the 5th month.
Oh, actually, I have a question. So I see my son is scoring like 5th grade level in most of these areas. Does that mean that my son should be moved up to 5th grade?
Well, not necessarily. While we notice that your son has scored excellent in some areas, James isn't socially or emotionally ready to be placed in the 5th grade, but he is in a great position of learning what's coming up next.
Awesome.
Okay, as we continue moving over, we see NS, which stands for National Stay-Nine. This is actually an easier way to look at the scores. If we look at the bell curve again, we can see that the number 5 is the national average. So 1, 2, and 3 are below average, 7, 8, and 9 are above average. James has a math total of 7, which is above average, and a score of 6 in reading. Did you have any questions about these scores?
No, it looks like James is doing pretty average on these, so bell curve wise, awesome.
Yeah, he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
Let's move on down to the bottom portion of the test. This section gives us details about the skills tested in each area. It shows us the number of items for each skill, the number attempted, the percent correct for the student, and the percent correct for students in this grade in the nation. So go ahead and look down this list and see if there are any content items you do not understand.
Well, I didn't see anything right in the capitalization names. I mean, what is overcapitalization?
Oh, that just means overusing capital letters, like putting a capital letter for the word dog when it should be lowercase. So let's see. This column shows the total items in this category. The next column shows the number he attempted to answer. The next column shows the percentage James got right, and the last column shows the percent correct in the nation. And these bands are a visual of what the scores look like compared to the national averages. James scored 100% in the history section, which you can see the national average was 58%.
Nice.
He also scored 100% in measurement, which the average was 64%. Some things we might work on are maybe using capital letters for organizations and groups. His score was 0 for these questions, but he scored pretty well in the other capitalization questions. So we might also need to work with punctuation, which his score was 33 when the average was 51. But in his portfolio, I have some journal samples he has written. He's very creative and his content is great. However, he does struggle a little with writing complete sentences and when to capitalize words. In his math journal, we have done some word problems and some graphing, which he has done great. He always shows his work and his writing is very neat. Did you have any other questions about how James is doing?
No, I think that might be it actually.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you this handout that explains what all the test scores mean. You can take that home, go over it again if you want, and it's yours to keep.
Awesome.
James is a great student. He's a great helper in class. Just tell him to keep up the good work, and like I said, anything you can do at home to help him with spelling and reading will help him that much more. So
Awesome.
Thank you for coming in today, and it was nice to meet you.
Thank
I'll
you
see
so
James
much.
in the morning.
Will do. Thank you.